السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. ربنا زدنا علما اللهم فقهنا في الدين. My dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam, we are continuing our hadith per week from Riyadh al-Salihin. We are still doing the chapter on sabr from the first book. Last week, if you'll recall, just as a recap, we were talking about when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were to send an epidemic, a pestilence, a plague to a village or to a location. If someone were to stay in that location, understanding that whatever were to befall to happen to them is from the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seeking Allah's reward and having patience with that, they would be counted as having as a shaheed. In other words, if they were to die from that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would include them as a shaheed, given their patience and things like that. So for today, our hadith is going to be, it was narrated by Anas radiallahu anh, and he said, radiallahu anh, I heard Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam saying, Allah Azza wa Jal said, when I afflict my slave in his two dear things, referring to the eyes, and he endures with sabr, I shall compensate him for them with Jannah. And this is narrated in Sahih Bukhari. So, it's a very simple hadith, very straightforward, but very profound in its meaning and depth, which is to say that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to give somebody an affliction in their eyes, and it doesn't necessarily mention that it's complete blindness, but I think it can be understood that it's blindness because that's the main affliction that would, you would lose entirely the ability to see. And that's I think in other narrations is clarified or is talked about, that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were to take away your eyesight, to take away your ability to see, and you have sabr with this, if you maintain sabr in this situation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward that person with Jannah. So in other words, the reward for having sabr after having lost your eyesight is Jannah. And of course, we hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would preserve our eyesight, but it just goes to show that the believer, the mu'min, whenever they face some kind of a difficulty in this life, they lose something or they are tested with something, for the believer, it's not only the difficulty. There's the hope in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His reward in the akhirah. So that's why we have the other hadith where the condition of the mu'min is strange, because when something good is happening to him, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he's grateful to Allah and that's good for him. But if something bad happens to him, he has sabr and that is also good for him. In both cases, there is a good outcome for the believer because sabr will yield the reward in the akhirah. Since we have a little bit of time, I'm going to do one more hadith, inshallah. It's another very profound hadith. It was Ata bin Abu Rabah reported that Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh asked him whether he would like that he should show him a woman who is from the people of Jannah. And so when he replied that he certainly would, he said, this black woman, referring to one of the ladies, said, and of course, I'll clarify why that's important. Who came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, this lady, she said, I suffer from epilepsy. And during those epileptic fits, my body would become exposed. So, can you make dua to Allah for me? So he sallallahu alayhi wasallam replied, if you wish to endure it, to have sabr patiently, and you be rewarded with Jannah, or if you wish, I shall make dua to Allah to cure you. So she said, then I'll try to endure it. I'll endure it. And then she added, but my body becomes exposed, so pray to Allah that my body doesn't become exposed. So he sallallahu alayhi wasallam then made dua to her dua for her for that. And this hadith is muttafaqun alayh, narrated in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. So you have to understand that this hadith clarifies and points out that this was a black woman. And this is the reason because racism has existed throughout humankind. And people back then, as some do now, look down on people because of their skin color or their social status or so on. Islam came to eliminate this, but it lingers in the people's hearts because of their bad character or their cultural upbringing where they might look down on some people. So in this case, the fact that she is a black woman is pointed out because she might have been looked over by the rest of the society. She might not have been seen as significant. And in fact, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh is pointing out, do you want to see one of the women of Jannah, one of the people of Jannah? This woman, who maybe someone not knowing anything about her would not think much of her. Maybe she was poor, maybe because of her skin color, maybe she was a former slave, maybe there are all these reasons why that maybe someone looks down on her. So in fact, Ibn Abbas wanted to point out that no, none of those matter. In fact, you might look down on her, she is one of the people of Jannah in fact. And the story is, she came to Rasulullah ﷺ asking for relief from epilepsy, a very severe condition. And there was no medicine, there was nothing at the time, and she would have these seizures. And then she would become uncovered because of those seizures. And so she said, Ya Rasulullah, can you make dua to Allah for me? So the Prophet ﷺ gave her two options. He said, if you have sabr, this would lead you to Jannah. Or if you want, I'll make dua for you so you'll be cured, without any judgment. But basically he gave her the choice. So she said, I'll be patient with it then. I can bear with this for Jannah, but can you make it so I don't become uncovered? I make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so I don't be uncovered. So her hayat drove her to ask, at least so I don't be uncovered. And that's a virtue. That's a virtue in fact. So she did not lose the opportunity for Jannah. She preserved her hayat, and she still had the opportunity for Jannah for having sabr. And it seems that she maintained this state, and to the point where Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh, later on pointed out, this lady here, she is one of the people of Jannah because I saw this situation in front of the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So my dear brothers and sisters, it might be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala afflicts you with something very difficult. In this case, was epilepsy. And again, that point, whatever the affliction is, whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts you through, if it's hardship, if it's difficulty, having sabr through that hardship. Many times these hadith after hadith after hadith in this book, in this section, pointing out, if you have sabr, the reward is Jannah. If you have sabr, the reward is Jannah. If you have sabr, the reward is Jannah. So my dear brothers and sisters, sabr is one of the shortcuts to Jannah. Because we will all face some trial and some difficulty. If we have sabr through them, Jannah would be waiting for us, inshaAllah. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to pour down upon us sabr. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make easy for us what we have to face in this life, and whatever we have to face that is going to be from difficulty for us, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for sabr through it. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant relief and victory to our brothers and sisters in Gaza and in the rest of Palestine, in Sudan, in Yemen, in Kashmir, in all of the places where there is calamity, difficulty, disaster, and hardship. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant support and help and relief to our struggling brothers and sisters in Islam, and in fact all people facing all kinds of oppression. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help them and to relieve them and to lift the oppression off them. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت وأستغفرك وأتوب إليك. جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.